Good afternoon, good evening, everyone. Welcome to the 2020 edition of the Young Aurora Award. Thank you for joining us from all around the world for the 4th edition of this very special event. And thank you for Future Studios for hosting us today on this platform. My name is Hannah Tümpel, and I'm the Deputy Executive Director of UWC, United World Colleges International. And it is an immense honor and pleasure to see some of you and to know that so many more of you are there and to accompany you today as your moderator through the program. If things were as always, we would now be in one room for the 4th edition of the Young Aurora Award. We would be in New York or Armenia to celebrate the importance of humanitarianism and to celebrate the role young people can and should take in addressing humanitarian concerns. But in this year, many things are not as always. And I'm therefore especially delighted that at least technology allows us to be together in this virtual space. I believe that it's especially during dark and challenging times that we must gather to share best practice of humanitarian action and to encourage and empower each other to stand up for humanitarian values. Let me start by welcoming a few people, especially for today's event. My first very warm welcome goes to Veronica Zonabend, the real driving force behind the Young Aurora Awards. We will hear from her in just a little while. Thank you, Veronica, for making this 4th edition possible. A very warm welcome also to the final jury. And I will name and introduce them quickly. First of all, Lord Darcy, the Director of the Institute of Global Health Innovation at Imperial College London, who also serves as the chair of the Aurora Prize Selection Committee. Welcome to Anna Afeyan, the co-founder of the Nuba and Anna Afeyan Foundation and a board member of UWC Dilijan. Welcome to Sanaya Barucha, the Director of Community Impact and Student Leadership for Teach for All. Welcome to Mosimbi Kanyuro, the current chair of the UWC International Board. And a warm welcome to Marguerite Barankitz, the founder of Maison Shalom, and as many of you know, the 2016 Aurora Prize laureate. It's wonderful to have all of you with us. Thank you for being here. And I would also like to especially welcome the representatives of the partner organizations, in particular the African Leadership Academy and Teach for All, who help us from UWC to make this event become possible. Allow me please 2 logistical comments. First of all, today's event will be in English, but we do have Armenian and Russian translation available. So if you go on the translation option at the bottom of your Zoom screen, you can opt for Armenian or Russian if you want to follow in those languages. We also invite everybody to take advantage of the chat, where you can ask a question if you have a technical difficulty, but where we would also love to hear from you and your reflections on the event. And as you will notice, we will call on the audience at different points in the coming hour or so to proactively involve you also in our conversations. During the coming hour, you can expect the following. We will first hear the presentations of the 3 final teams for the Young Aurora Awards 2020. The jury will then leave to another Zoom room to deliberate on this year's winner. And in that time, we will be listening to an engaging panel discussion with 5 wonderful thinkers from the field of education. And at the very end, we will then hear the jury's announcement of this year's winner and celebrate them. Now I'm delighted to hand over to Veronica Zonabend for some welcoming remarks. Veronica, over to you.
Yeah, thank you, Hannah. Thank you. First of all, I want to thank you to the teams, the judges, and the panel, and all the attendees for the participating in today's event. The world is at complex crossroads. Clashes of values, ideas, cultures have taken center stage globally and threatened peaceful and sustainable humanitarian, ecological, and economical development. I believe that education is the most effective route for sustainable development. Kurt Hans Vision, the founder of UWC movement for education based on respect for the individual, responsibility to the community, and an awareness of the importance of the democratic process is sustaining both remains more relevant than ever. UWC values too are as relevant today as they were in the 60s when the movement started. It is truly unique secondary school system on a global scale. It has been at the forefront of providing world-class education to deliberately diverse grouping of young people while fostering their humanitarian values. UWC is an incubator for the kind of intercultural education crucial for today's fragile world. It motivates students to accept each other with all their differences while encouraging them to appreciate their own cultures and heritage. This cultural enrichment is an intellectually motivating environment, encourages young people to learn, to understand each other, and to become real bridge builders, whether in everyday situations or in societal level. For almost 6 decades, UWC has been developing the talents of young people positioned to be global citizens, ready to solve challenges of the day. And today, we're celebrating the UWC education and the ideals of the Aurora Humanitarian Initiative, which are closely aligned. Founded on behalf of the survivors of Armenian genocide and in gratitude to their saviors, the Aurora Humanitarian Initiative seeks to empower modern day saviors to offer life and hope to those in urgent need of basic humanitarian aid. And it is heartbreaking to see that the situation is so serious in Artsakh and Nagorno-Karabakh, where Armenians are struggling for the right of their existence again as 100 years ago. Let us hope that human values would prevail, all political and financial interests and peaceful resolution would be found. Among the initiative's programs are the Aurora Prize for Awakening Humanity and the Aurora Dialogues. Through Aurora, our students have access to humanitarians around the world who make a difference in their own communities. On the 19th of October this year, Aurora Humanitarian Prize was awarded to Somali mother and daughter human rights activists Fatuma Dam and Ilwad Elman, who lead the Elman Peace and Human Rights Center in Somalia. They received $1 million award and a unique opportunity to use this funding to support the organizations that inspire their humanitarian action. They selected 3 organizations in Somalia that fight for freedom and human rights, provide healthcare to marginalized populations, and save victims of sex trafficking to be the beneficiaries of their prize. Thinking of these 2 amazing Somali women and mother and daughter working together to fight for their ideals, humanitarian values should be fostered in our children all along through our personal example, through education and through discussion like this. Aurora laureates include people of different religions, races, and ages who dedicate their lives and even put their lives at risk to save others. And I'm glad that some of the Aurora laureates, Margaret Barankitzer, is here with us today. The world needs leaders driven by humanitarian goals, and I hope that this event today will contribute to our understanding of humanitarianism and its role. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Veronica, for these very meaningful words of welcome. Let's now move to the presentation of this year's 3 finalist projects for the Young Aurora Award. The 3 finalist teams were chosen after a rigorous selection process of projects submitted by 12 schools, including the African Leadership Academy and UWC schools. The pre-selection jury this year chose the project from UWC East Africa and Tanzania, UWC Mahindra in India, and UWC Southeast Asia and Singapore to move to the final round. And it is from these 3 projects that we will hear now. Each of the presentations will follow the same order. We will first watch a brief video about the project being presented. We will then hear from the students any information they would like to add. And the jury will then be given the opportunity to ask 1 question to each of the teams and to hear the answer to that, of course. So with no further ado, let's kick off now. For the first presentation, I invite you to travel with me to Tanzania to hear more about Beehive Divide, a project which seeks to tackle the elephant-human divide in Sanyahoyi village with rather ingenious methods to protect both the endangered crop of the villagers and the elephants. So let's look at the video and hear how they plan to do this from Jubi, Lydia, Mariam, and Mohammed Ali, representing the UWC East Africa team. Good luck.
The extinction of the wild has affected our lives as we become poor in nature and the surrounding. Elephants lose their lives in attempt to go into the farms. But the worst and the most painful situation is the poverty the villagers sweat to fight. Crops are destroyed, but no helping hand appear. They strive to survive. Together, let's listen to the cry of our mother in Sanyahoyi village.
Tunachofanya ni tunachukua kama makengele, tunapiga filimbi, tunapuliza, alafu tunaweka hivi chombo kama nakula shambani, anakimbia. Lakini kwa kweli wanatuchafulia sana mashamba yetu. Sasa kama mashamba yako kule bondeni kule, sio rahisi mimi kwa hapa nisikie wanakula kule. Hata nikipiga tochi haiwezi kufika kule. Kwa hiyo ndio unakuta kwa sababu wanaharibu. Hata na yale maeneo ya kahawa kule, kahawa wanunua, miti wa kuzingatia, hakuna vitu kabisa.
Earlier this year, a group of UWC students, together with the Sparkling Elephant Project, built a beehive fence in Tenga Tenga. Now that the Maasai community there is enjoying its invaluable benefits, it's time to extend this solution to Sanyahoyi through Beehive Divide. Fencing posts will be stationed every 8 to 10 meters, and successive hives will be connected using sturdy fencing wires. Sometimes the bees' buzzing sound alone is enough to scare away elephants. But if they try to pass through the hives to get into a villager's garden, they'll knock into the fencing wires, cause the hives to sway, and disturb the bees. The angry bees will come out of their hives and sting the elephants, forcing them to turn around. These stings are not fatal to elephants. A chili fence will be planted a few meters in front of the hives. Chili's pungent smell repels elephants when planted in and around gardens or burned with cow dung.
We're aiming to create 70 beehives to make a 700-meter-long beehive fence. We'll run a cast experience in the design rooms of both campuses, Moshi and Arusha. It will involve constructing beehives from both wood and recycled plastic. This initiative will be an example for students to do similar projects in the future.
This project will not only save the lives of villagers in Sanyahui, but also provide a source of income to selling honey, increase food security by protecting gardens, and enable villagers to go to school or engage in profitable economic activities instead of anxiously watching over their gardens. The Chaga community.
The endangered elephants.
The unprotected fields.
Need our help. The extinction should become fluent in
Hello, my name is Ali. I'm from Syria.
Hi, my name is Mariam. I'm from Tanzania.
Hello, my name is Jubei and I'm from South Sudan.
Hello, my name is Lydia and I'm from Uganda. Elephants are responsible for 98% of all wildlife-inflicted crop damage, human injury, death, and infrastructural damage in Sanyahoy. An estimated 100 endangered African elephants are killed every single day. And that's why we're so honored and excited to present to you our project, Beehive Divide.
So, there are three main causes of the human-elephant conflict in Sanyahoyi. First, the presence of Sanyahoyi among three national parks, Kilimanjaro, Amboseli, and Arusha National Park. Please note that Sanyahoyi doesn't block the wildlife corridor because it's beside the corridor. Second, in this part of East Africa, we have very clear dry and wet seasons. So in the wet seasons, elephants are strongly attracted to the crops planted. The third reason is that the rainy seasons creates a lot of wallowing sites in crop fields. Wallowing is when elephants try to access mud because mud creates a protective layer that shields their body from the sun rays. So the project timeline is divided in a period of 9 months, divided in 3 parts in a period of 9 months. And after the project is implemented, the project will be held and ensured by delegated incoming students who are interested in continuing the project.
Our partners are central to our project success, and we've been in constant contact with them to ensure our project's sustainability and maximum impact from the $4,000. Although our initial target village was Tarakia, reflecting on our interview with the Sia District Game Officer, we realized that Sanyahoy was in a much more desperate situation. The Tanzanian Elephant Foundation has agreed to give the villagers of Sanyahoy free beekeeping courses and free protective gear to ensure the maintenance of the hives and maximum profit from honey production. Dunia Designs has agreed to use plastic from the UWC's Africa Recycling Scheme to make our green wood for our decoy beehives. And the Sparkling Elephant Project shall continue to be a source of guidance. After intensive research, we concluded that the most feasible beehive design for our fence was the Kenyan Topar beehive because it is easy to use and assemble, produces large quantities of honey, and can easily be adapted to a plastic model.
On effective implementation of the project, we were able to do more research and best use of project finances. The assembling of the beehives will be done by students and villagers, which creates a spirit of commitment and engagement. One of our project's strengths is the practicality of our impact evaluation method. The overall impact of the project will be a decrease in the mortality rate of both humans and elephants. And also, there will be no more destructions of crops, which enable farmers to increase production for their sustainability. In addition, there will be flow of income from the honey production, hence, more income ensures the continuity of the project due to the available resources.
Without the funding from Young Aurora, our project impact will be limited. We plan to extend the beehive fence at Tinga Tinga. Although this will happen, the elephants rate at Sanyahoyi will remain prevalent. After our graduation, we plan to maintain continuity of our project by handing it over to our future D2 students. This will mean that they're able to cover a higher number of affected areas. VSLA, a section within the Tanzania Elephant Foundation, will be able to cover any expenses for damaged beehives. At the same time, workshops will be held in the village to ensure that all the villagers are provided with beekeeping and safety courses.
The Chaga community,
The endangered elephants,
The unprotected fields
need our help.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks so much, Team East Africa. And special thanks because you managed to go through your presentation with your slides actually being stuck. So we all knew that there will always be a technological hiccup. This was the one we had now. And what we propose to do is that we will actually share your slides with the jury so that they can look at them, okay?
Thank you.
The upside was that we all listened very attentively to you. So there's always also positive. With that, I would like to hand over to the jury to ask the one question you would like to ask Team East Africa.
I have a question, if that's okay.
Sure.
I'm curious to know whether there was any collaboration between you and the Sanyahoi villagers to create the solution. What was their role in coming up with this solution, if any? And what is their willingness to maintain the beehives, their ability to keep that going independently?
Yes, so our initial collaboration was actually in Tinga Tinga with the Sparkling Elephant Project. And once we built the beehive fence there and realized that it was effective, we visited Sanyahoi last quarter and we spoke to the district game officer. And the district game officer, together with a few villagers, one of which was interviewed for the video, took us around their crop fields and showed us areas where the elephant raids were most prevalent. So we explained to them our project and we asked for feedback. And their greatest concern was that they had never tried beekeeping before, since the Chaga are traditionally agriculturalists. So beekeeping was an unknown territory for them. And that's why we approached the Tanzanian Elephant Foundation. And the Tanzanian Elephant Foundation, after a series of interviews, agreed to give the community in Sanyahoi free beekeeping courses and protective gear to try to cultivate the beekeeping practice in them, so they'll be more willing to protect the fence.
Thank you so much. Thank you, team. Uwc Africa, very well done. And now I would love to hear from the audience in the chat. So there's a chat function on Zoom where you can write, both the panelists and the audience can write to everyone. What are the words which came to your mind as you were listening to the project? Do share them with us so that we can also hear everybody's voices and reflection. Maybe it's sustainability, maybe it's empowerment, whatever it might be. Please do share in the chat so that we hear everybody's voice. And in parallel, I will move on to the second presentation. As the words are coming in, look, it's very nice. Inspiring, creative, inventive, sustainability, simple and powerful, wonderful. So I hope Uwc East Africa, you'll enjoy seeing that. Community-oriented, impactful, very ingenious, like the bee strategy. Great. Okay, for the second presentation, I will take all of you on a journey with me to India, and more specifically to rural Mulshi Taluka, where Shriya, Priyanka, Aditya, and Ananya from UWC Mahindra College, or as we also abbreviated from MUKI, seek to empower the local community to make independent and informed decisions about their health. I'm very pleased to present Med Rangers. Over to you, Team MUKI. Good luck.
In our local context, lack of access to medical facilities compounded with a significant incidence of medical malpractice makes it difficult for citizens to get quality healthcare and live up to their potential.
यहाँ पे लोग हॉस्पिटल जाते हैं सर्जरी के लिए, एक्चुअली उनको नीड नहीं होती सर्जरी के लिए, फिर भी डॉक्टर उनको सर्जरी करने के लिए बोलते हैं, क्योंकि लोगों को एजुकेशन नहीं है तो उनको समझ में नहीं आता कि हमें सर्जरी की ज़रूरत है भी या नहीं। मुझे लगता है कि यहाँ पे एजुकेशन की बहुत ज़रूरत है, कि मेडिकल एजुकेशन होना चाहिए। और दूसरी चीज़, अभी कोरोना की सिचुएशन है यहाँ पे गांव में, तो बहुत सारे पीपीटी किट नहीं होती है आशा वर्कर के लिए, बहुत सारे लोगों को सैनिटाइज़र नहीं होते हैं, मास्क नहीं होते हैं, तो इस चीज़ की बहुत ज़रूरत है। अगर ये चीज़ गांव में मिलेगी तो कुछ जो लोग हैं वो उनको फ़ायदा होगा.
In our meeting with Dr. Gadre, an activist and gynecologist in Pune, we realized that the problem was much bigger than that. Medical malpractice haunted the region. Doctors would often use forced hysterectomies and unnecessary cataract surgeries to take advantage of the blind faith as well as the lack of medical education of their patients. Hence, MedDanger decided to use education as a tool to empower and equip people to make independent and informed decisions about their own health.
In times of COVID-19, we plan to digitalize our health workshops about symptoms, treatment, and causes of prevalent health issues. These videos will be designed in consultation with public health experts in Hindi and Marathi and will be shared via WhatsApp to local staff, members of the Valley, and Sadhana Self-Help Group. In addition to this, we will create a separate video series about insurance and government health schemes that our stakeholders can avail of. Secondly, we plan to provide first aid training in an online format to Sadhana Self-Help Group, thereby giving key medical knowledge to key community leaders in the Valley. And thirdly, we plan to facilitate further medical training in collaboration with a health NGO for community health workers in the Valley.
In order to ensure that we create a human-centered project and truly meet our stakeholders' needs, we have and will rely on the design thinking process throughout the duration of our project. We consistently assess our stakeholders' needs and gather their feedback through surveys and open-ended interviews.
The funds provided by the Aurora platform would be firstly used for financial capacity building for distribution of first aid kits, secondly to make payments to external partners like Handfill, thirdly to organize health camps, and finally the Aurora platform could itself be used to connect us with public health experts who could help us to develop our project further. The end goal of our project is to increase cumulative impact in the form of A, access to medical assistance, B, ability to suspect illnesses, C, registration of insurances, and D, reduce susceptibility to medical malpractice.
Hi, just like you saw in the video, my name is Priyanka. I'm from India.
Hello everyone, my name is Ananya and I'm a recent graduate of MUCI.
Hi, I'm Aditya and I'm a MUCI alumni as well.
Hi, I'm Shreya and I'm a second year at MUCI as well.
Ladies and gentlemen, esteemed guests, comrades, we are very excited for this opportunity and we are excited to present our project.
I think there's some problem with loading. Priyanka, can you present the presentation?
Sure. Give me 1 minute. Is it visible?
Yeah, it's visible.
MedDangers addresses the humanitarian concern of medical malpractice, which is caused by lack of health education and medical assistance in Mulchi Taluka. In times of COVID-19, ASHA workers, who are the government healthcare workers in the villages, do not have access to PPE kits or adequate training for COVID-19 response. Hundreds of people in Mulchi Taluka do not have COVID-19 protective gear to protect themselves from the deadly virus. Hence, we formulated a project outline that caters to different stakeholders differently. The preventive aspect of our project includes education with the help of external partners like Jumpstart Outdoors and Vivo Healthcare, from whom we've already received confirmation, and educational videos and workshops on the signs, symptoms, and causes of diseases so that people know when the doctor is duping them. The second aspect of our project is the diagnostic aspect, which includes organization of health camps and offering free consultations with the help of the campus doctor. This allows us to measure our outcomes.
As we built on our video, how are we measuring these health indicators during the times of COVID-19? Firstly, we're relying on COVID telephone interviews in the times of COVID-19, as these interviews will help us get feedback from our stakeholders. Secondly, we are relying on surveys to collect key data. For example, the number of people insured in our program in December 2020 as compared to the number of people insured in our program in May 2021. Thirdly, we are also relying on assisted assessment of our participants from external organizations like Jumpstarters and our other partners to get an estimate of which women are particularly interested in the training and how we can progress further with our project. So now, what are we doing to address these outcomes that we have in COVID-19? We're using the Spandan IT lab to virtualize our solution so that 10 people can learn at a time through a virtual screen. We have already completed an educational workshop on oral health and heart health, educational videos on health schemes and diabetes, surveys for residents, ASHAs, and public health experts. And finally, we also received guidance from Umra Omar, the founder of Safari Doctors in Kenya and UWC Allen.
So what about our impact and numbers? Well, we recognize that improving health indicators is a multifaceted approach, and so we've developed a range of strategies. And these numbers just reflect the tip of the iceberg when it comes to the impact our project can have given funding. Training 10 ASHA workers means 10,000 people in the Valley will have access to an individual with increased medical knowledge and skills. And equipping them with 40 reusable PPE kits means that they can carry out their work in a safe and dignified manner. Providing first aid training to key community leaders like Sadhana Self-Help Group women and primary school teachers means that 560 to 600 people in rural areas will have access to an individual with first aid knowledge and first aid kits who can be called upon during emergencies like snake bites, dog bites, fatigue-related falls, and in emergencies, especially during these times where services are further delayed due to COVID-19.
While designing this project, it was very important to us that it should be sustainable and have a positive long-term impact on the local community. Since a lack of infrastructure such as roads and medical clinics lowered our stakeholders' health outcomes, we decided to help the villages become medically self-sufficient to a certain degree by facilitating ASHA worker training and advanced wilderness first aid training to community heads. They will apply this knowledge long after our project has ended. Furthermore, MedSoc, which is an extracurricular service organization in our school, will continue organizing health awareness workshops, educational videos, and health camps. Currently, they're raising funds for PPE kits and COVID-19 relief kits. If we don't win the prize money, the training that we can provide to ASHA workers and community heads will be negatively impacted as it is facilitated by external organizations. Our efforts to raise money for PPE kits and COVID-19 relief kits will also be hindered. However, we will do our best to make up for this by reaching out to external NGOs, the UWC network, and crowdfunding websites to raise money. Additionally, we will continue with the preventative aspects of our project, such as educational workshops and videos.
Fundamentally, our project is a long-term and permanent investment in improving health indicators in Moshi Valley. We will equip local experts with the tools and further knowledge to care for themselves, their communities, and their families. For the people in Moshi Taluka, by the people in Moshi Taluka. And esteemed panelists, now more than ever, we've seen that there's a profound need to invest in healthcare and health education in rural, vulnerable farming communities like ours. Are you ready to invest? Thank you so much for listening. We're so grateful.
Thanks so much, Team Yuki. Well done. Can I invite you to stop sharing your screen? And well done for getting it up. It seems like the special challenge for today is that everybody has some difficulty with the slides. Well done. And I will hand over again to the jury to ask one question. Musimbi?
What a wonderful effort by the group. My question is, the ASHAs are very well known in India as delivering health in the rural areas, and they are often given training by government and several NGOs. What is the add value of the training, and how can you yourselves, what will you be training them that is different from the training they have had? And have you designed this program together with the ASHAs?
I can answer that. So the training that ASHA workers received is by the government. It spans over a period of 25 days for only a few hours. Many of them are not even graduates, and many of them have not received adequate training. So their job is to diagnose common ailments like fever, cold, cough, and provide medicines for that. However, they have not received enough training, especially for COVID-19 response and emergency response, which is the most prevalent issue right now. The training that we have formed with the ASHA workers, as well as Jumpstart Outdoors and Vivo Healthcare, will provide them with adequate skills, not only to treat, not to treat, but to take care of COVID-19 patients and their families and perform emergency response as needed. Now, I would like to also say that this is not limited to COVID-19 response. This also includes first aid training, advanced first aid training, which we received in our first year, but we want to increase and give this training to ASHA workers as well. And so that they are able to diagnose more ailments and advise villagers to seek timely help.
And adding on to that, we've also talked to Vivo Healthcare and decided that a key component of this is also communication in healthcare. So a key component of the course would be educating ASHA workers or equipping them with the right terminology to explain to the doctor. So like from their own perspective, communicating to the primary subcenter in the area. And so to try and bridge the translation gap. And also, as well as that, just over telephonic interviews with our local public outreach experts in Moshi Valley, we've been talking to ASHA workers, and it's as part of our plan, we'll have several Zoom calls with them to actually collaborate on finalizing the content of the course.
Yeah. Thanks so much, Team Yuki. Well done. And can I invite all panelists and all attendees, both on the Zoom and also those who are watching us on the Facebook live stream, to add their reflections as just one or two words into the chat. What went through your head as you were listening to the Med Rangers project? Comprehensive, important, extremely insightful and enlightening. Nice. Well done, Team Yuki. Researched. And there will for sure be more coming, for example, ambitious. And with that, I will lead us into the third and final presentation of the 3 finalist projects. And our final journey will take us to Singapore, where we will hear about the project Her Journey, with which Karen, Kalista, and Yu Yang from UWC Southeast Asia are helping to elevate the platform and give a voice to foreign domestic workers in Singapore. Over to you, Team UWC SEA. Good luck.
We have an agreement that I will get a food allowance of 200 a month. And then the first month she gave, at the end of the month, she said, no, the 200 is too much. I can only give you 100. But when our contract agreement, she agreed to 200.
Based on our interviews with FDWs, cases of employers breaking promises were extremely common.
Foreign domestic workers, or FDWs in short, are care workers who move to Singapore and work in people's households. Their labor rights are easily violated because they need to reside in employers' homes. They often face situations like forced labor, verbal and physical abuse, and salary deductions.
To address these labor disputes and to raise empathy for FDWs, Her Journey was established in May 2019. First focusing on education about FDW issues, we moved on to raising labor rights awareness among domestic workers.
We have 3 main projects. The first one is the Empathy Challenge. It is a card game that simulates the challenges faced by FDWs in their migration working journey. In our card game, the players will roleplay as FDWs or their employers and negotiate solutions to the challenge cards we've created.
Our second initiative is our podcast post on Instagram. Aside from recorded interviews, they also include our own commentaries regarding labor rights issues. They are intended to give FDWs a voice and shed light on conflicts in employment relationships.
Our third initiative is a YouTube series titled Know Your Rights, which targets FDWs. We illustrate and explain legal information using real-life cases handled by NGOs. As a youth initiative, we have connected with 4 local NGOs that actively support domestic workers. Our creative content and our ready access to target audiences, including parents and students, complements their existing advocacy agenda.
Through organizing workshops in collaboration with the NGOs, we've been able to reach hundreds of domestic workers, employment agencies, and employers using our courses and games. The professional feedback provided by NGOs also help us to improve the quality and accuracy of information we provide.
During the COVID-19 outbreak, we've continued to conduct phone call interviews with foreign domestic workers provided by NGOs. These interviews let us continue our own research on FDWs. Her Journey is dedicated to Sustainable Development Goal 8 and the International Labor Organization's agenda for promoting decent work.
We hope to be able to use the Aurora funds in 3 aspects: producing and distributing Empathy Challenge, equipment for podcasts and creating videos, and also organizing workshop events.
Her Journey, Care for Care Workers.
Hi everyone, we hope that the video gave you a clear introduction to Her Journey, and we are all from Uwc Southeast Asia, and we are very glad to be here to present our project. I'm Karen, grade 12 from China.
I'm Callista, grade 11 from Indonesia.
I'm Yue Yang, grade 10 from China.
Now we will start our presentation.
As one article puts it, it looks like one country, 2 realities for foreign domestic workers or FDWs working in Singapore. Since the workers are not protected by the Employment Act, as Singaporean workers are, labor rights violations against them are common. This is mainly due to public inattention and government inaction.
Despite progress, government protection and enforcement of labor rights of domestic workers remains insufficient because it prioritizes employers' interests. Restrictions on activism adds onto the issue. For example, it took NGO Home 8 years to successfully secure a legal weekly rest day for foreign domestic workers. During the pandemic, we have seen a spike in the number of these violations made by employers. Because FDWs are spending more time into employers' houses, incidents like overtime and unpaid work occur more easily and frequently. Facing all these constraints from the government, we are inspired to create more creative solutions to raise labor rights awareness, resolve employment disputes, and aid domestic workers' cultural transition into Singapore.
Our approach is to be flexible, out of the box, and ultimately engaging. We value adaptability. During the pandemic, we have switched to remote operations. We're also open-minded to changing our methods, such as the prospect of digitizing our Empathy Challenge. Our central goal is to serve as a bridge between the NGOs, FDWs, and the employers. Many NGOs concentrate on working directly with domestic workers and don't have the spare resources to advocate towards the public, which is essential for preventing cases from happening. Our access to the extensive schools and households employing domestic workers, including through our multi-grade service programs, allow us to complement NGOs' advocacy agenda. For example, we have helped our NGO partner to reach more employers to gain sponsorships. We also benefit from the partnerships because NGOs provide us with their expertise and advice to help us push forward our own initiatives.
As our goal is to fundamentally change the public's attitude towards domestic workers, the impact is better measured qualitatively than quantitatively. We have to consider change in people's perspectives and other personal factors that are not quantifiable. Nonetheless, we measure impact quantitatively through the number of workshops we organize, interviews we conduct with FDWs, educational videos we produce, and service programs we establish. On the right half of the slide is a list of things we have already achieved.
Our ways of qualitative measurement include analyzing feedback from workshop participants, NGOs, and FDWs, sending out surveys about labor rights, and receiving responses on social media.
Our project is sustainable in terms of human resources, finance, as well as the environment. As long as we remain connected with the students, employers, domestic workers, and NGOs, we can sustain our operations. Our members are from different grades and have diverse skill sets to contribute. We also have reliable sources of expertise through our connections to NGOs. Financially, we plan to invest the funds in long-term resources that would not require continuous funding, including equipment, workshop materials, and personal connections. In terms of environmental sustainability, instead of paper, we promote our advocacy content online, which also allows us to reach more audience, and we reuse empathy challenge for different workshops.
Changing minds and calling attention to the issue in this developed country has many social barriers. We need to initiate large-scale and long-term advocacy campaigns for us to even be heard and gain a wider audience. We will mainly use the funds to organize workshop events in order to connect employers, workers, students, experts, and NGOs. The funds will also go into equipment for Know Your Rights videos, production of empathy challenge cards, and logistics.
Without the funds, we will seek other financial resources, but it could limit our activities according to what we have. Due to restrictions in Singapore, we are not allowed to fundraise, and NGOs have limited economic resources to supply us, especially looking at the COVID situation. All these considered, we need the Aurora funds to make much needed change in Singapore.
Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Team Southeast Asia. And again, I will hand over to the jury members to ask a question. Who is taking this one? Lord Darcy, I see you unmuting.
Yeah, I mean, good piece of work. I wondered if you had any data to look at Singapore's, this is a challenging problem, but the last place I expected it to be was Singapore. So I just wanted to see what made you pick Singapore, I presume because you're part of there, or how does it compare with other neighboring countries? Because Singapore has many, many laws in the protection of foreign workers. So I was slightly surprised to see it as Singapore.
Yes, so thank you for raising this question. Actually, we know that Singapore is very well known for being a fine city where a lot of fines are kind of present for punishing people for breaking laws. However, for domestic workers, and especially foreign domestic workers, Singapore's legal labor rights protections are very insufficient. As we mentioned, that the Universal Employment Act, which is the labor code in Singapore, doesn't apply to those migrant workers who are on low-wage schemes. And usually they are only protected by very basic labor rights, which are very ambiguously phrased, so that the language includes provide decent accommodation or like meals for the workers. And 8 years ago, they are not even entitled to a weekly rest day. So in this sense, that there's a very huge contrast between how workers are protected who are not in those low-wage sectors and foreign worker kind of working industries. And if we compare Singapore with Hong Kong, which are usually kind of considered appropriate, Hong Kong has a much better labor rights protection system for domestic workers at least. And a lot of legislative changes we are advocating for in Singapore are actually something that we could learn from Hong Kong. And Singapore doesn't have a minimum wage in place for domestic workers, which is usually also very problematic. And in Hong Kong, we see that they have a very kind of at least decent minimum wage system instituted. So I think in terms of a lot of like basic labor rights issues, we can see Singapore still is lagging behind, at least in terms of developed countries' standards. But we also know that a lot of countries in the region have shared like similar problems. Based on our interviews with the domestic workers, we know that they have like a preference letter in terms of the destinations they would like to go. And the Middle Eastern countries usually suffer more in terms of labor rights issues. And they would prefer, if they have the financial means, to migrate to Canada, America, or the United Kingdom for such same domestic service work, because their labor rights will be much well protected there.
So they want to leave Singapore and go to America. That's a new one. Yeah.
They would prefer if they save enough, but the reality is that they have to pay very high agency fees when they engage in this sort of migration. So transferring from Singapore to Hong Kong or Canada would be a very kind of hard or challenging issue they have to deal with, and they have to save enough in Singapore first, which usually takes like a few years, and sometimes they would be kind of cheated or deceived by their agencies who charge them a large sum of money, but fulfill their promises. Yeah.
Thanks so much, Team Southeast Asia. And maybe just one thought to add is also that one of the eligibility criteria for the Young Aurora prizes is, of course, that the project must be based in the vicinity of the school which submits it. So that was probably another reason to choose Singapore for the student team based in Singapore, and also the local vicinity for all the other projects. So well done, Southeast Asia. Well done, all three schools. Can we have some words in the chat from everybody, including all attendees and also those on Facebook? You can add comments on Facebook on your thoughts around this. Insightful, creative advocacy, much needed work, very thorough, necessary, great. Thank you very much. So this brings us to the end of the presentations, and the jury is now tasked with a very difficult task, which I am glad not to have, to choose the winner of this year's Young Aurora Award. And that means that we will wave them goodbye for a little while, and they will meet in another Zoom space for which they have all received a link. And we will welcome them back a little later for the announcement of the winner. So to Margrit, Musimbi, Anna, Lord Darcy, who else am I seeing? And everybody else, good luck in your deliberations, and see you in a little while. And while they are going to discuss and vote, I'm delighted to announce the second part of today's program, which is a conversation and debate among 5 fascinating speakers, thinkers, and doers in the field of education. You will have seen the title. It is Responding to Change, New Horizons in Education. And as you can see, that's a very big topic for a 30-minute panel. But with everybody's help and participation, I am sure that it will become a very powerful and meaningful exchange. And with this, I would like to hand over to the moderator of the panel, Andrew Nalani. Andrew holds a master's degree in education from Harvard University and is at the moment a doctoral student at NYU. And he has spoken powerfully at many events, including, for example, the Gatekeeper event organized by the Gates Foundation. And as you can imagine, I'm very delighted to add as well that he is also, of course, a UWC alumnus. So thank you very much for being with us, Andrew, and over to you and your panel.
Thank you, Hannah, and thank you for the gracious introduction. It's wonderful to be here with you all. We have 35 minutes to explore as a central question that the panelists will be responding to. And this discussion is really at the intersection of education and humanitarianism. But because you all have been seated and listening attentively to so many presentations, we thought we would engage you first before we dive into the panel. And so as I know that we have 2 audiences. We have one that's on Zoom and one that's on Facebook. And the first engagement with the audience that we'll have is a poll question that is actually only going to be available for the Zoom participants. For the Facebook participants, there will be another moment for you to engage, but whoever is on Zoom will be responding to a poll. And the question is, we are seeking your opinion. In your lifetime, do you think humanitarian ideals and values, however you may understand them, can be meaningfully integrated in education? And you can indicate yes or no. And for our Facebook audience, in the meantime, if you haven't had a chance yet, you can read the bios for the panelists, and I will very briefly introduce them as participants respond to the question. In your lifetime, do you think humanitarian ideals and values, however you understand them, can be meaningfully integrated into education? And as we wait for participants to complete the poll, I just want to say that there are four panelists who are with us today. Priyanka Mahat, who is a UWC Diligent class of 2020 graduate, who is also from Nepal and is also enrolled at Brown University, where she focuses on international relations, human rights, and development issues around the world. And we also have Chris Bradford, who is co-founder and CEO of the African Leadership Academy, Julia Middleton, founder and innovation officer of Common Purpose UK, and last but not least, Sam Potlicho, who is the founder and president of the Preparing Global Leaders Forum, and also a leadership professor at Georgetown University. Thank you so much, panelists, for agreeing to this challenge of responding to a central question in a limited time. There'll be, after we see what the poll looks like, you'll be responding to one central question. You'll have 2 turns. Each turn, you'll respond for 3 minutes, and I'll be moderating. When you hear my little clock go off, that means that you are at time, and I'll be calling the next person. Okay? In between the 2 rounds, we'll have another audience engagement moment, and I will be mentioning how the 2 audiences will be engaging with the central question as well. Super. And do we have the poll results? So 98% of the participants on Zoom say that yes, they think humanitarian ideals and values can be meaningfully integrated into education. And we have the 2% who do not believe that that is the case. So with that in mind, I'm inviting the panelists to respond to this central question. We are going to, just to give you a sense of the order, Priyanka will go first, and then Chris, then Julia, and then Sam. And the central question is, what is the one thing that we can do now that will have the biggest possible impact to make humanitarian values more central and impactful in education? I'm going to repeat that question one more time. And just a note for our Facebook audience as well as our Zoom audience, there will be a chance for you to engage with this question as well. There'll be a link where you can enter your answers into a word cloud, and we'll get a chance to see what you all say. That link is now in the chat box and also in the Facebook comments. Again, the question is, what is the one thing we can do now that will make the biggest possible impact to make humanitarian values more central and impactful in education? And I'm passing the mic to Priyanka for your 3 minutes.
Thank you so much, Andrew and Aurora, for having me here. So I'm just going to start. So when I think of the words like humanitarianism and education, I think of values that our world lacks today, values of empathy, equality, representation, intercultural understanding, and community service being taught to children since young ages. But we can't think of implementing humanitarian perspectives without thinking of how, within the confines of the real world, education systems suffer from the same issues that exist like outside of them, of deep divides, competing national interests, and socioeconomic constraints, which looks like some schools in some parts of the world being well-funded and well-resourced, while others not so much. And I do think that despite my UWC idealism, that this is how the world will look like for a while. And because there's so much work to be done, even the smallest of systemic changes, though, can have a huge impact in incorporating humanitarian values and making really impactful changes among children today. So I do feel like the most important thing to do is to make schools more representative of our ideals so that we can show our children a vision of what humanitarianism-driven world looks like. The premise for this is the fact that schools are really our second home, right? We spend more than 6 hours a day there. Teachers and friends are our families. School rules are kind of like our way of life. So including humanitarian perspectives and approaches in curriculums is really necessary. But if we want to do that, especially in the present day and age, I think we need to ensure that our actions reflect these values and principles that we want our future generations to embody. So if we want to teach them that everybody matters, then we need to start by making sure that they're taught this principle by everyone. That is to say that we need to have a more representative school administration and teaching faculty, teaching our children of what the world should look like, right? This means schools should be more diverse, deliberately diverse spaces, which can tap into their diverse range of like perspectives and approaches that exist in teaching, but also help the most marginalized groups of students see themselves represented in some sort of a system. I think this is especially necessary because the world outside is chaotic in the way that a lot of groups are not represented in the media, in politics, in different workforces. And I think we need educators from different backgrounds and lived experiences from more ethnicities, genders, skin colors, religions, economic status, etc., to teach our children, because it is really important to show them what an ideal world looks and can look like, which I think is the biggest incentive at the end of the day to teach them to be more humanitarian. Having educators that understand children's circumstances allows to create practices that contextualize these ideas to our learners. Yeah, I'm sorry if I run a bit over time, but that was my...
Thank you so much, Priyanka. And I'm passing, thank you. I'm passing the mic now to Chris.
Thanks, Priyanka. And thank you, Andrew. First, congratulations to all of the groups that presented today. I really enjoyed hearing your solutions to challenges, which reminded me of a whole range of curricular things that we can do to promote humanitarian ideals. But I think the single most important thing that we must do if we're going to transform education in this way is we must challenge each school to have a profound core purpose. The greatest schools in the world are all intentional communities. They've clearly articulated a mission and a way by which they seek to improve the world around them. And they've articulated values and culture that seek to uphold that mission. And yet most schools do not articulate a clear mission. Students attend those schools believing the purpose of going to school is to get grades, to earn marks, rather than to perhaps uplift the world and change the world as we know it. So what I would argue for first and foremost is for each school to define a profound core purpose. I think when we do that and we organize our teachers and our students in service of that purpose, we will find that we naturally begin to bring into our curriculum the types of experiences that these three teams have demonstrated for all of us today. And so I look forward to exploring this further.
Great. Thank you so much, Chris. And just to let you know, Chris, there is another 1.5 minutes if you want to use it up, or you can just say pass and I will.
We can keep moving.
Great, thanks, Chris. And that gives us some more time at the end. And I'll pass the mic to Julia.
Thank you, Andrew. I was looking at the Aurora, Young Aurora criteria: creativity, sustainability, quality of research, impact, commitment, self-reflection, and format. And I was thinking that's a pretty tall order as a criteria for the prize, and that maybe our ideas should be as good as that. First thought. Second thought is that last year at Aurora, I actually talked about humanitarianism to quite a lot of the attendees and interviewed a lot of them on the subject. And the thing that really struck me was that a significant number of schools and a significant number of humanitarians remembered a moment at their school, in their schooling, when some sort of ceremony was performed that was a sort of loosely passing out ceremony. Yeah, it was I don't know, I tried to write the words of it. It was a passing out ceremony. It was a blessing ceremony. It was a welcoming ceremony. It was something or other that sort of, that crystallized that they were moving on to a stage of being humanitarians. And a lot of them remember this. Sometimes it was just a dinner. Sometimes it was a retreat that was extraordinary. But a lot of them had very, very powerful memories of it. And it motivated them to live up to whatever they committed to at that moment. And I thought that was very interesting. I thought they had various characteristics. All of them had this sense of celebration and of welcoming. So there were humanitarians there welcoming them into a humanitarian community. The second one is that in my language, it was saying to young people, of course you must plan your career in your family and you'll plan your career in your work, but you also have to plan your career as a citizen and as a humanitarian. So start thinking where you will add value now. The third one was that I thought was very interesting. There was a sense of we are a generation. Yeah. So Priyanka, you're not the same generation as me. So we may be both humanitarians, but you're a different class. You're the next class, you're the whatever class so that sense of building a generation that was different from the previous generation and will be different from the next. And then the last one was a real focus on leadership and on the kinds of leaderships that Veronica was talking about, where you cross all kinds of boundaries, whether they be of faith or culture or whatever it is, that bringing people together. And the thought I had was the thing I'd love to do that I think might make it more likely that we achieve the 98% ambition. I put in no because I thought perhaps I'd make up 2%. So I suspect I was the only no, and I'm the 2%. I think we should find some sort of platform, find some sort of story that connects up all those passing out ceremonies that happen in schools in any year in the loosest of forms, so that you get young people, however they pass out, let's hope not pass out drunk, but pass out as humanitarians. However they pass out, they have a sense of all having something in common. If we could connect up all those passing out ceremonies, it'd be very exciting. And it might even prompt a few other schools to actually do passing out ceremonies.
Thank you, Julia. And for this round, I am passing for the last speaker in this round, I'm passing the mic to Sam. And right after Sam, we will hear what the audience has to say, and panelists, you'll take it in and you'll be responding to what you've heard and what you see in the cloud. So Sam, the mic is yours.
Thank you so much, Andrew. I am going to print out these poll results and put it on my refrigerator for my shot of coffee every single morning, my shot of optimism. Really excited to be with everybody today. Just simply language etymology would be my suggestion. What do I mean by this? At least in English, when we take the word education, it comes from two different Latin roots, educare and educare. One means to train or to mold. That's how we normally think about education. Tomorrow I'll be teaching at my home away from home university, my heritage, the University of Bologna. When you visit the University of Bologna, they pass out sweatshirts that say that they were founded in 1088, but they also have the AD below, just to even show you there's a chance it happened before, that it was before the year zero. And Bologna was started, the students hired professors because they might have been the only expert in the field that had that information. So trainer to mold, I think, is how a lot of the world thinks about education. The other Latin root means to lead forth or to lead out. And if we can reconceptualize universally education to train yourself to lead outside of yourself, right? That imaginative leap, that empathetic understanding is a way to get towards that humanitarian ideal. And then the other language etymology would be from the English to decide, decisare, which literally means to get rid of or to eliminate. And I'm plagiarizing here a professor at Harvard University, Michael Sandell, who's just released a book on meritocracy. But are we thinking about achievement and excellence in the way that we should? That achievement and excellence might be a real education of leading yourself to get outside of yourself, transporting you into the story and into the minds of others as a propeller, as an engine for the humanitarian ideal. Thanks for listening to me. Looking forward to the next stage.
Thank you so much, Sam. And I was taking notes as each of you were speaking. I just want to highlight a few sort of nuggets that I'm taking away from this first round. Deliberate diversity that Priyanka mentioned, having a core purpose or a core mission around which schools are organized, and that was Chris. Julia mentioned the notion of passing out, or in the way that I'm interpreting it, initiation into these communities of practice. And Sam pointed us back to the language or to the roots of what education means, being able to lead forth or being able to train oneself to take the imaginative leap. Thank you so much for this first round. And now we are curious. What did the audience have to say? What did the audience have to say is the one thing they would do that would have the biggest possible impact to make humanitarian values more central and impactful. And I'm going to see if I can give some shout outs here. I'm looking very closely to my screen. The image is a little small, but a couple of things are developing compassion, self-awareness, gratitude in action, access for all, learn to give, teach empathy, perspectives, service, humility, create solutions, self-awareness, volunteering, respect, advocacy, diversity, curriculum, value focus, resilience, inclusivity, empower youth, more care, self-awareness, action, helpful. These are some of the highlights of the words that are on our screen. I'm going to give our panelists 30 more seconds just to take this word cloud in. And I'm hoping that the word cloud can be shared with the audience on Facebook as well. Super. And now for this next round, each panelist will have 3 minutes again, and we're going to go in the reverse order. And so this time around, Sam will begin with you, and we'll go to Julia, Chris, and then Priyanka, 3 minutes each. Again, as a reminder, once my clock goes off, I will jump in again to thank you for your reflections. And if we have time at the very end, we might have a free-for-all round where panelists can jump in without being called on, if we do have the time. And so, Sam, we'll begin with you. I'll pass the mic to you, and any response that you have from what you've heard or the word cloud.
I'm smiling right now because my newborn baby has just woken up, and so I'm worried that her screams are going to interfere. But the reason I'm really smiling is that I wanted to share my screen and give a question. It was talk about perspective, imagination, and empathy. This is a question that I give in a lot of our leadership training programs, a diagnostic question. I know you didn't think you would get a math question today, but can you add a single line to the following equation to make it correct? There's just one rule. You're not allowed to place the line through the equal sign, converting it to a not equal sign. And remember, just by definition, a line must be straight. Let's give everybody a chance to check that out. Now I'm going to reveal the answer. You may want to put your hands behind your back as I reveal the answer, because you may have a temptation to slap yourself in the forehead. I didn't take out injury insurance for this presentation today. Here is the great reveal. 10 to 11 equals 1050, combination of numbers and obviously letters and words. You may say to me, well, Sam, my second or third language is English. I was at a disadvantage. I, to this day, still have not had a native speaker of English solve that equation correctly. Out of 25,000 people, I believe I've only had 7 get this right. And there is the same thing that's going on with all 7 of these individuals, at least in my experience of giving this question, which is they have a mother and a father from different nationalities. That this is creativity, and that if you're falling in love with people that might have different cultures or different perspectives, you're more likely to be comfortable with the cross-pollination, with the boundary stretching, which was one of the reasons why I had a big smile on my face as I'm getting accustomed to my newborn baby. She has a mother from Russia, a father from the United States, particularly during some tense geopolitical times, trying to think about whether or not this is helpful in cultivating an empathetic imagination, to fall in love with difference, to fall in love with disagreement, to fall in love with discomfort. Can our schools help us do this?
Thank you so much, Sam. And I'm passing the mic to Julia.
I found the word cloud quite difficult. My father used to say to me, if you want to change the world, you have to have your eyes on the hills and your feet on the ground. And I loved the presentations for the Young Aurora Prize because they were practical, real things that we can do with elephants, that we can stand up and say, come on, this is our society in Singapore. We can tell the world that we're the smartest city in the world, but not if people who make our food and look after our children can be shoved on a plane whenever they get ill to get out of the way. And we have to have people in villages, and particularly women in villages, who actually understand what health means. I love the practicality. So I found the word cloud a bit sort of, yeah. Maybe, do you know, I'm 62, I'm getting old. That word cloud honestly would have been exactly the same when I was 14. So my plea is to get more practical. My plea is to get more scalable. Think of practical things that you can do, or actually multiply. Everybody's doing brilliant things all over the world. Connect them up and scale them up and make them happen. So I found the word cloud is beautiful, but it ain't going to change the world, in my view. We have to do some more practical stuff too. Eyes on the hills, absolutely. Feet on the ground, get on with it.
Thank you, Julia. I'll pass the mic to you, Chris.
I love eyes on the hills, feet on the ground. So what I saw in the word cloud were 2 ideas that I think are deeply connected with each other, one of which was empathy, and the other was an idea of learning from experience. And one of the questions that I think we all need to ask ourselves, and which the Aurora Prize does so very well, is how do we craft experiences that foster deep empathy and then translate that empathy into action. And that's what each of you have done with your presentations today, and why I'm always so inspired by this prize. So taking those things apart, foster experiences, right? One of the things that we need to do is we need to teach for experience. We need to create challenges that are truly authentic and put you in a position as students of any age to try to tackle those, to tackle those authentic challenges in an authentic way. The second thing is that we need to develop in every student a process that that allows them to use what's sometimes called today design thinking to build real empathy for their end user. So I loved the empathy challenge, Singapore. I thought the way in which you actually put cards together that challenged people to ask questions that helped them more deeply understand and put themselves in the shoes of domestic workers who live in someone's home was a profound experience of empathy that you then linked to action, which were a set of tasks that you invented. You listened to those users, you refined, and then you put in place such that you could ultimately have a transformative and positive humanitarian impact on the world. So I would encourage all of us, and especially those of us who are educators, to think about how we teach for experience, to think about how we build skills of empathy, right? What are those kinds of card decks that we need to build or help our students create for themselves? And then how do we put students in a position to both understand the audiences they seek to serve, but also invent and deliver solutions and listen to those audiences to understand how those solutions serve their purposes or not.
Thank you, Chris. And last but not least, Priyanka, over to you.
Thank you, Andrew. Thank you so much, especially like previous speakers, because I agree with everything you all have mentioned, and I think these perspectives are very unique and valuable. I think when I was looking at the word map, I was trying to take in as many words as possible, and at the end of the day, I think I took two main ideas out of this bubble. That firstly was the idea of approaches at the bottom, where individual schools and individual teachers and these learning mechanisms can adopt values like empathy or interdependence and like independent learning processes. I think a lot of these feelings that the audience mentioned were, like, I would group them into these bottom up, like bottom level approaches. I think a few of the other solutions I also saw were approaches from the top level, right? Things like advocacy, changes in curriculums. I think both of those need to come hand in hand to bring in the kinds of changes I would like to see when I'm 50 years old, right? And as a student right now, I think, especially after hearing so many inspiring perspectives from these three projects, I think I can't help but think how much of a privilege it is to have gone to UWC. How much of a privilege it is that I attend a university right now, and how very few people in the world right now get to do that, right? And the fact that students who are still in high school are bringing up projects from the communities they're living in, which we've never heard of. I did not know of the elephant crisis that local communities have to deal with, right? And it's not just the problems that we're able to highlight as these educated youths learning in innovative systems, but we're also able to bring in these solutions that maybe people don't really have a lot of time to think about in today's day and age. So I think, like, with the privilege that a lot of us have been granted, the path forward is to pave the same road for others. I think like contextualizing solutions to the communities we live in is really what transformative education for tomorrow should look like. And those of us who have the ability to make these changes, to think about these changes, who have access to platforms like Aurora, should create new ones and should promote people who might not have the same opportunities and accesses. I think that is really how we can create a more equalized and transformative system in the future. Thank you.
Thank you, Priyanka. And there you have it, audience. Thank you so much, panelists, for taking that rapid fire, quick response, high level response to our question, what will it take to make values of humanitarianism more central to education? I want to hold up and call back into our space these two polarities: the empathetic imagination, and then this other polarity, which is taking action on what it is that we value. And as we hold those two, the tension between the empathetic imagination, clarifying what we value and acting on it, I wanted to leave us with a quote that is by Wangari Maathai, who was a Kenyan educator, environmental activist, and a 2004 Nobel Peace Prize winner. I thought I would leave this quote with us because I think it speaks to the time that we're in and to the tension that we are holding between the empathetic imagination and the courage to act on what we value. In the course of history, there comes a time when humanity is called to shift to a new level of consciousness, to reach a higher moral ground, a time when we have to shed our fear and give hope to each other. That time is now. In the course of history, there comes a time when humanity is called to shift to a new level of consciousness, to reach a higher moral ground, a time when we have to shed our fear and give hope to each other. That time is now. I think that balancing the practical, the scalable, with our eyes in the hills and feet on the ground, ensuring an empathetic imagination, and using both bottom-up approaches and top-down approaches, I think is calling for us to have a distributed resilience. And I think that it's going to take all kinds. And I want to just give a big shout out to our panelists for taking us on this exploration of how might we make humanitarian values and ideals more central to education. Thank you so very much. And with that, I will pass the mic back to Hannah. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Andrew. Thank you to all the panelists. And that final quote was quite special, and I guess especially for many of us on 3rd of November. And in the current reality each of us lives in very different regions in the world, I guess it resonated in very different ways, and it will certainly stay with me. So thank you for, as you said, this rapid exchange of creativity and different perspectives and ideas, embracing the differences of opinions. My only regret is that Sam's baby did not make an appearance, because I think we do need to see and embrace the future. And I guess you're offering to have it have an appearance now. So I hope for all the audience that you will also go away with new ideas and insights. And I also hope we will all go away with some open questions, which will inspire us for more curiosity. And there we even have the next generation joining the call. So that will be the Young Aurora Award 2036 or something, I guess. Okay. So we are looking forward to that then. Thank you, Sam. I'm also very delighted to see that the jury has joined us again after surely interesting deliberations. The students in the meantime have stayed with us, and they will have heard that various panelists referred to their projects and showed their encouragement and joy and just admiration for some of the projects. And I would just like to also take a moment to very much encourage both the panelists, but also the jury members to afterwards connect with those project teams, which they felt very inspired by, because our hope is, of course, that not only the winning project will continue and go forward, but that all 3 projects will have a wonderful and rich future. And I think all the students will very much appreciate any support and additional ideas they can have. And again, if we were in one room, it would be much easier, but we will make sure to connect anybody who wants to support one of the projects with each other. And with that, we will move to the announcement of the winner of the 2020 Young Aurora Award. I would like to invite the student teams to put on their cameras again, if they can. And I know that UWC East Africa almost had a power cut, but they seem to be back with us, and even with some Tanzanian sunshine, so that's going well. And if I understood correctly, it is Sanaya who will speak on behalf of the jury. So I will be handing over to you.
Thank you so much. You all, thank you for the incredible work that you're doing and for making the time to share your work and your projects with us. Just the discussions we had brought out so much of, like, we had the opportunity to share so much of our personal lives, our histories, what matters to us, just in discussing your projects. So thank you so much for that opportunity. We felt there were incredible things about each of your projects. So for the India team, we thought that just given the current crisis in the world, given the just need of the hour with medical health, that you all are doing absolutely incredible work, meeting a very core need in the Munshi Taluka. So thank you so much for that. And with the Singapore team, once again, such an important need. And what we really valued is that you had found your niche in being the bridge between the NGOs and the families employing these workers, which we thought was really special and really had a lot of scope for impact. And then for our Tanzania team, we thought your project, what I shared with the jury members is that it seemed, and pardon the language, but stupid simple. Like when you think of the solution, it seems so obvious, and it seems like it would just so naturally work. And we wonder why it hasn't been thought of before. We also really appreciated how your project was really locally rooted. It took into consideration the constraints of your environment, of what the villagers were facing, of the very real man-animal conflict, and found a beautiful balance between the two without prioritizing one over the other. It was incredibly unique, like you've shared with us. It's a proven solution. We know that it's worked before and it can work again. Incredibly sustainable. We believe that with your continued support, or even without it, it's something that the local villagers could continue in your absence, given that it serves a really real need for them. And hence you are our winners for this year. And so congratulations.
Wow, amazing. Congratulations, team UWC East Africa. We can see quite some joy happening there. And even more important that the power cuts didn't happen in this moment, and we can see you celebrating. Congratulations to Tanzania, and also very big congratulations to Miyuki and UWC SEA. I trust the decision for the jury was very difficult, and I'm sure some of them will be in touch with all of you to support your further project development. Maybe we can check in with UWC East Africa if they want to say anything quickly.
All right, thank you so much. I'd like to thank everyone who has helped us along this journey. Thank you to the Aurora Initiative, because as the panelists said, this is an opportunity that's very few teenagers are able to receive. And it's such an important thing that the UWC movement, the Aurora Initiative, and the African Leadership Academy lets us do. So we're so grateful for that. Yeah, because it couldn't have been possible, and we couldn't have started thinking about such issues if we didn't know there was a platform like this that was going to help us carry things out. Yes, and we'd like to thank our supervisor in his absence, our two other finalist teams. Your projects were super inspiring. thank you to the judges. Thank you for believing in us.
Yeah, thank you so much. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Great, thank you very much. And big applause from all of us. And with this, we will come slowly but surely to the end of this year's virtual Young Aurora Award. Today would not have been possible without the unwavering support of so many. So I would like to thank a few people and organizations. Firstly, the African Leadership Academy and Teach for All, both represented here today. I would like to thank the panelists and the moderator. I would very much like to thank the esteemed jury and also the pre-selection jury for giving their time and expertise to this event. I would like to thank Future Studios for hosting the event. I would like to thank all participating students for their enthusiasm and the amazing amount of work they put into this. And I include in this not only the 3 teams whom we heard of today, but all the participating teams, also those who were part of the pre-rounds. Of course, Young Aurora is part of the Aurora Humanitarian Prize and the general initiatives from the Aurora work. So I would like to also thank Vatan Gregorian, Nuba Afeyan, and Ruben Vadanyan for their leadership in the area. And last, but most certainly not least, I would like to thank again the biggest supporter and enabler of the Young Aurora Award, Veronika Sonnabend. Huge congratulations again to all 3 teams. It's in the middle of the night for Singapore now, and it's quite late for Tanzania and India, but I hope you will spend the coming hours celebrating the amazing work you have done. I think you have shown how humanitarian concern can become a very important part of education and the very important role young people can play. And we are extremely proud of all of you. Thanks to everybody, to all participants for joining us. We would love if you all stayed in touch with us, with the project teams, and with each other. We hope that you will all continue to be a presence for positive change in the world. It's more needed than ever. And finally, we really hope that you will all stay well and be safe. Thank you so much for being with us, and we hope to see you in real next year. Bye-bye.